Hello and welcome to On the Edge. I'm Dr. Jonas Moses, and this hour we are engaged in a special report. This is a special report on public health policy and infectious disease. And I wanted to start the program with an introduction, a raison d'etre, if you will, for producing this, what I think is an incredibly important subject. Recently I was asked to co-develop and become the executive editor of a new medical journal called Rethinking Medicine. And the theme of this journal is the continuous examination and reassessment or reappraisal, if you will, of medical and scientific paradigms. In thinking about how this journal would unfold, what it would look like, what kinds of subject matter were covered, and who the audience was, which arguably is any of us who are in medicine and science. I wrote a mission statement, and I would like to read that because I believe that that is really the stepping off point for this conversation today. What I wrote was that this journal is dedicated to the proposition that nothing remains static in our constantly expanding and evolving collection of fund of knowledge, including the co-joined realms of science and medicine. In accepting this universal truth, the inevitability of growth and change, we must also acknowledge there can be no sacred cows, no immutable dogmas or paradigms. For as soon as we cease to question the dogma and paradigm, we've lost the ability to engage in the fundamental processes of discovery, the scientific method. When we begin to elevate our paradigms to the status of deities, then we have also made of our science a religion. We are faced with a world in which there are many, many countries where disease is treated, evaluated, and then treated on the basis of a cough, diarrhea, sniffle, dehydration, wasting, without any serious effort at diagnosis. No history, no physical. Oh, this patient has a cough and has had a cough for 3 weeks. I'm going to give this patient a drug, and the patient will go out the door. If they're fortunate, they'll have a follow-up. But in many third world countries, they're fortunate if they have any health care at all. I've chosen to introduce this topic today with a conversation that goes back to 2003, when I had read an article about a woman in New England who had had a serious medical misadventure, and wanting to better appreciate what had happened to her and perhaps offer some guidance, I contacted her. Her name is OtE Serrano, and after a long conversation at that time, it became apparent to me that Audrey really needed to speak with someone who was an expert in these issues regarding a certain kind of infectious disease and viruses, and I sought out my mentor and referred the two of them, and ultimately they worked together for quite some time, resulting in this conversation today. I'd like to introduce Audrey Serrano. Thank you so very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jonas.
Audrey, rather than a long introduction, perhaps you would tell me a little bit about your background. First of all, tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, and then let's go back to when you were first diagnosed in 1994 and the circumstances of that.
Okay.
Where are you today?
Well, right now, I just, as of May 15th, I graduated with my associate's degree in paralegal, and I run my own organization, FamiliesAgainstAbuse.org, and I'm in the process of closing on my home and working on my health. I still have a lot of health issues, which will be lifelong, of course, from all the drugs I took for all them years, but still working on that.
All right.
And basically picking up my life and, you know, kind of starting over.
Let's go back 14 years or so. What was the circumstance under which you ended up in a doctor's office or in a hospital receiving a battery of tests?
Well, back in 1994, I had been dating a guy that was diagnosed as HIV positive and was on the cocktail. And
a drug cocktail of some kind?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, he was on the AIDS cocktail,
okay.
actually, AZT and all that.
All right.
And so then later on, I had ended up sick. I had borderline double pneumonia, had been diagnosed with borderline double pneumonia. And my mother had been begging me to go and get checked because of this man that was diagnosed with HIV.
All right.
So finally I did. My mother and I went, and when I went back for the results, it was an anonymous test. And when I went back for it, it came back positive. And
positive for an infection?
For HIV.
Okay.
It was a positive HIV diagnosis.
Okay.
And the people gave me a piece of paper, and again, it was anonymous. It just had some numbers on it. And I brought it to my doctor, who then in turn put me on AZT, Epivir, and I was also on Bactrim.
And what else?
And then,
what happened thereafter? Did you get better?
No. I continuously had the diarrhea. I acquired colitis. I was constantly tired. I had no appetite, no energy, none of that. Then she subsequently...
your doctor?
My doctor at that point in time, right. She closed down her office. So she in turn sent me over to Clinic 7, which is an AIDS clinic. They only treat AIDS patients.
Okay.
And then they subsequently put me on additional HIV drugs, Crixivan and a slew of other medicines, on top of the AZT, the Epivir, and the Bactrim.
Now, were you getting better then?
No, actually I was worse. I was getting bacterial infections, upper respiratory infections. I was constantly in and out of the doctor's office, up at the emergency room, pneumonias, different bacterial infections, you name it.
This is over the course of how many years?
From 1999 up until 2003, when I found out Labor Day weekend that I did not have it.
Okay, so in 1999 was the first time that you went to see a doctor, or in
1994.
1994, okay. And that was when you first started taking medication?
Yes, my doctor put me right on it.
Okay.
Right.
Had you been ill before 1994?
No.
Okay.
Not.
We're going to go take a commercial break, Audrey. I want to pick up where we left off. You're watching In Time TV. This is a special report. I'm Dr. Jonas Moses. This is On the Edge. Please stay with us.
It is our goal to improve patient care through the methods of preventative medicine. At the same time, we try to relieve the economic stress that physicians are faced with every day through consistent, increased reimbursement. The ANS is the vital sign driving all other vital signs that differentiates individual response to disease, therapy, and lifestyle. You are already treating your patient's ANS. Now you can scientifically optimize therapy for the individual patient. Now the effects of both branches of the ANS can be visualized quantitatively. ANS testing is recommended as a standard of care by the leading medical association. ANSAR is the standard of care in ANS monitoring. The ANS dysfunction is asymptomatic, and until the development of ANSAR's technology, ANS dysfunction could not be observed or detected until end organ damage or neuropathy has already occurred. You can start treating the cause, not just the symptoms. If you would like more information about ANSAR and the ANX 3.0, please feel free to contact us at 888-883-7804.